Well, welcome everybody. I think we should warm up the crowd here and then get started. Jess, what do you think?
What, tell a few jokes?
All right. Welcome to Trailhead DX.
How's it going so far?
Yeah.
Good.
Been to a lot of sessions, packing your brain full of information.
Oh.
Boot camp Friday. Well, you know, this is going to be a pretty lightweight session. It's kind of like relax and learn, and then the hard work starts when you take our recommendations and go implement them. So listening is going to be easy. Right?
Okay, and so welcome everybody and good afternoon. Hope you're enjoying your lunch. Our session today is called Catch the Release, and it's really all about putting some process around how you manage releases so that you get the most out of Salesforce. I guess I should have learned how to use this beforehand.
The green button.
Okay, the big one. This is our forward-looking statement. I'm sure you've seen this lots if you've been around Salesforce at all. It's just a friendly reminder to only base your purchasing decisions on currently available functionality. So I'm Jacinta Burke. I'm from the accent you might guess. I'm a long way from home. I'm based in Dublin, Ireland. I started my Salesforce career as an admin back in 2003 when Salesforce was a totally different animal at that time. And I've been with Salesforce for almost 10 years now, first as a success manager and now as part of the Release Readiness program.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elna Miller. I am a moderator in the Trailblazer community in the Release Readiness and Lightning Now groups, mainly. And I started at Salesforce almost 7 years ago. Before that, I was also an admin and learned all about being an admin, and following releases became a passion of mine ever since then. So really happy to be here and share these notes with you.
So now that you know a little bit about us, here's what we're going to talk about today. I'm sure many of you do keep up with releases. Can I have a quick show of hand who kind of keeps up with releases as much as they can? Okay, so a fair few of you. What we're going to talk about today is really why you should care about the releases. Everybody knows they're there, but why should you actually care about them? And we've also got a kind of low-effort, structured framework, 4 key steps that you can do every release that are repeatable and that basically will help you prep for a release and the impact to your org and your users. Then we're going to talk about how you can take it to the next level with all the resources that are out there for you and demo a couple of those resources for you. So what is this release advantage anyway, and why should you care? Well, I'm going to date myself now and say that I remember getting software upgrades in the past where it was a disk or a clunky FTP site and it took ages. With Salesforce, you know, you've got 3 releases a year. It's automatically installed. There's nothing to install. No real downtime. And it comes at no extra cost. So you know you'd be mad not to use it. You also get access to all our innovation. We've got 3 releases a year, probably with 200 to 300 features in each release. So if you're an admin or a developer or even one of these exotic creatures we've just heard of called an admin-eleper, really what you want to do is you want to be looking at your roadmap for your org and seeing can you do things natively out of the box rather than going off and building stuff or paying a developer to build it. And obviously all these features that we push out, how do we know that they're the right features? Well, many of them come from you via the Idealixchange. It's a great place to go and suggest new features, vote up features that maybe you're waiting for in your org. All our product managers are on there. And also you can see what features are coming or have been delivered in past releases. If any of you are newish admins or solo admins, one of the things that I found useful in the past was sometimes if I couldn't do something, I didn't know, was it just personally I just wasn't able to do it, or if it was something that couldn't be done. The Idealixchange is a great way of validating that something couldn't be done. And often in the comments, you'll see other customers suggesting workarounds they've put in place or maybe app exchange packages that have helped them get past that barrier. Over to you, Elna.
Okay, it's quiz time. Is everybody ready for a quiz? Okay, so a lot of people said they follow releases, so that means you probably all know that there's a special logo for every release. And recently we started featuring our mascots in the logos. Before they weren't featured. So the quiz question is, which mascot has not yet been featured in a release logo? So show of hands for Cody and Cloudy. And what about Astro? Oh, you guys are smart. You're right. It is Cody or Cloudy that has not been featured. And so next time there's a logo contest in the community, you get to vote on a series of logos, which one you like the best. Make sure to vote for Cloudy so she doesn't feel left out. Because Cody has already been featured twice, spring and summer 18, and winter 18 was Astro. So a little bit of fun there. Now, it may seem daunting if you're kind of new to following releases. It may seem like a daunting task because there are lots and lots of resources available. The release notes are long, etc. So what we want to do is kind of break it down for you and give you a phased approach so that you can start with a few simple steps to kind of ramp up, understand what can you do without spending a whole lot of time, just to get the bare minimum information about the release. That will put you miles ahead of not doing anything. And it really is something you should be able to fit into your schedule. Then we have some advice if you want to take it to the next level. You're already doing the basics. You want to move on and dive a bit deeper. We've got some recommendations for how to do that as well. So onto the basics. The first step in any release preparedness process is to mark your calendar and understand when the releases are going to happen. So when is the sandbox preview coming to your sandboxes? When is the production release coming to your specific org? Because there are different dates depending on the instance. And the release cycles are very predictable. It starts about 6 to 8 weeks before production. It's always kind of the same pattern. So once you learn kind of how the cycle works, you'll understand it going forward. So it's worth spending a little time kind of getting familiar with that. So your homework after today is to go to the trust status site, look up your sandbox instance, and look up your instances, if you have more than one, and look up your production instance and see when is the sandbox preview coming and when is the production release coming. And you can do that 3 releases in advance if you really want to plan ahead. Now, this is a really important piece of content that we post in the community. It also gets posted on the release site. So in the release readiness community, Jacinta puts this together. She shares it. This gives you a great overview of all the resources that are coming out during the release cycle. They come out on an incremental basis. So first we have, usually the first thing is the sandbox instructions, the sandbox preview instructions, and then we move into all sorts of other resources as we go through that release cycle. So definitely download this, follow that group, and follow the site, and you'll see this.
And you're getting a sneak peek here because we're
right.
not publishing
that
that
was the
till
summer.
next week.
This is the actual summer 18 milestones.
Yeah.
So I'll wait for people taking a picture there.
Yeah. And we will be posting this deck on the
Yes.
session feed anyway, so you
Plus,
can
this is going to be
download from
posted.
there.
This is actually going to be posted pretty soon, right?
Yeah,
It's
on
coming up.
Monday.
Yeah. So step 2 is look at the release notes. Everybody needs to look at the release notes. Now, you don't need to read the whole thing because it's huge, and it contains information that probably doesn't pertain to your org because you don't have every single product, probably. So what you want to do is take a scan, take a quick look using the filters that are available on the HTML version of the release notes. So you can filter for 2 main things. The first one is auto-enabled features. You need to know what is being auto-enabled in your org because you need to communicate that to your users in some cases because they might see something pop up. You don't want it to be a surprise if it throws them off. The second thing is filter by edition, what edition you have, what products you have, and then you'll see these blue italicized headers. Those are the things that popped up in your filter. Just scan through those contents there and just see if there's anything that piques your interest. Drill in there. Maybe that you find some quick wins or low-hanging fruit, things that you could easily set up and implement. So examples of that would be in Spring 18, we introduced personalized navigation and tabs. So this is a great thing, automatically enabled. So this is something you want to leverage for your users who really want to personalize the tabs across the top in Salesforce. So you'd want to know about that. And also the improvements to account and file search and how you can drill into the actual filters once you search for those objects. Low-hanging fruit, things that you would have to set up, so wouldn't be automatically enabled. Examples, path on accounts. A lot of people have been asking for path on the account object. That is something you have to enable and set up. So you want to know it's available, so you know to add it to your list of things to put in your own release process. And also macros. So a lot of folks love macros. Previously, they were only in service and kind of limited application. And in Spring 18, they were kind of expanded everywhere. So now even your sales teams and sales ops folks can use macros as well. So that would be something you'd want to look into. Third step in the basics is make sure you get early access to the release, as early as possible, the minimum being participating in the sandbox preview. And if you're a customer with Professional Edition and higher, you have access to at least one sandbox. But having a sandbox is not enough. You have to make sure that your sandbox is on what we call a preview instance. So if it's sitting on a non-preview instance, that means it won't get upgraded during the sandbox preview. And you want to have at least one sandbox that's dedicated to testing the new release. So you need to read the sandbox preview instructions blog that comes out every release. And we also have a video that kind of helps explain how to make sure your sandbox is on the right instance. If you don't do that by the cutoff date, because this is time sensitive, you will miss the boat. And we don't want you to do that, because I tell you, it happens all the time. We have lots of customers who suddenly decide that they want to look at the release during the sandbox preview and come to find out they missed the window. And Jacinta, how many times have we been asked about this, not just from customers, but employees at Salesforce as well? It can be confusing.
If I had $1 for every time, I'd be sitting on an island in the Caribbean.
Exactly. So, and this is another thing, you just need to learn it once, and then you'll know it. You'll understand how it works every time. So number 4, always check and recheck your Lightning readiness. So you've probably already heard lots and lots about Lightning, not just here. I'm sure before you came here, you heard about it. And there's a reason for that. It's not a question of if, but when you will be transitioning to Lightning. You want to make sure you are ready, that you're prepared, you have your transition plan in place. So you're going to want to look at what are the new features coming to Lightning, things that you may have been waiting for, maybe some parity gaps you're looking to see filled, and generally update your transition plan. And remember, you want to run that readiness check at least every release. Once a month is ideal, but every release, because you're going to get different information. Not only do they enhance the readiness check with new features and providing more information, but they also are going to, augment it and add things as the new release comes in, because certain gaps get removed, things get added to remove some of the things that normally would have come up there. And we have a great quote here from our MVPs say, don't get stuck in the past. You want to be able to leverage all of the latest innovations that Salesforce is bringing you with these 3 releases, and the only way to do that now is with Lightning.
So obviously, you're going to learn lots more here. There's a keynote. There's lots of hands-on exercises. One thing I'd like to mention is that when you go out of here and go all the way to the escalators, there's an area that's called the Lightning Launchpad. There's some fun stuff there, like going for a ride with Cody. But there is also lots of our experts there talking with customers individually about how you can make the transition to Lightning. So maybe you're wondering, how do you prepare for the rollout? Or maybe you have specific questions on, I've got JavaScript buttons, what do I do with them? Any kind of query that you have, go along there, spend 15 minutes with an expert and kind of start planning how you can start your transition. So whenever myself and Ellen talk to customers on the Trailblazer community all the time, and we know that lots of people do keep up with the releases, But we also know that lots of people, maybe Salesforce isn't your only job, maybe you have another role in the company you're in, or you manage other systems. And sometimes it's a case of you just don't have the capacity to go any deeper into the releases. And lots of people end up missing stuff that way. So now we're going to talk a bit more about how you can take it to the next level, and really how do you put some process around it so that every time a release comes, you know, okay, these are the things that I have to do. So we've kind of broken it down into 3 kind of areas. One is you need to start looking at how you prepare and learn about the release features. Then you need to think about how you're going to assess and prioritize those features. And lastly, you're looking at how you test those features and also how you communicate them to your users. So one of the first things we'd like to say to you is, obviously, we're very passionate about this, and if you've ever seen us on the Trailblazer community, we're banging on about this all the time. But we want you to love the releases and see them as an opportunity rather than a challenge or an annoyance that comes along every 3 months. Because really, this is a great way for you, no matter how long you've been in the system or how old your implementation is, to be able to use features to solve use cases. Maybe there's stuff on your backlog that you wanted to do for ages but haven't been able to do. Maybe you've got existing customizations that could do with an overhaul, or maybe you've been dealing all along with workarounds or limitations. The great thing about looking at new features in each release is that it's up to you. So you can pace yourself, you're the one in control. So although there are some auto-enable features, for most of the features you can choose when to roll them out. Indeed, we talk to many customers during these types of sessions, and they tell us what they do is they use our release timeline, and then you add 4 to 6 weeks onto it to roll out their own releases internally. Now, for a bit of fun, Elena talked about the sandbox preview. The pre-release for summer 18 happens on the 19th of April. So that's a couple of days before even the release notes come out for summer 18. In tandem with that, we run a treasure hunt on the Trailblazer community. And this is a great opportunity just to go in and look at what people are excited about. We have lots of our MVPs who come on and go, oh, I found this great nugget in reporting or in opportunities. You see what people are excited about. Maybe you're waiting for something on the Lightning Experience roadmap that's coming in summer 18, and you just want to get a quick look at it. In any case, it's a great way that you'll be able to then hit the ground running with your testing once Sandbox Preview comes along. Elena talked about doing a scan of the release notes. Maybe now's the time to look at taking a deeper dive into them. So you're looking at using the search and filters more extensively, maybe looking at what's in pilot and in beta. You probably don't want to download the PDF, which is over 400 pages, because you don't want to kill all those trees. But if you do, one thing you need to be aware of is that from when the preview release notes come out, for summer 18, they're going to come out on the 24th of April, till the release goes GA in your org, which may be June. There are a lot of changes happening in that time. So every week there's a change log, so we advise you to keep up with that. So then you've got the release notes. How do you look at prioritizing all that stuff? Well, we just wanted to highlight one tool here. And you can see from this slide, it's not fancy. It's something that one of our success managers has been doing for about 6 years now. He started it for his own customers, and now he shares it more widely. And basically what it is, it's just an Excel dump of the release notes, titles, and descriptions with a couple of columns added in for, whether you want to farm out the review to somebody else, or what decision you've made, or maybe it's got some color coding if you want to go, this is not applicable to my org, or I'm not going to do it right now. But it's a great tool to help you prioritize. Kind of when we talk to people about how they start prioritizing, we say, don't try and boil the ocean. Start looking at the stuff that you're already using and where the impact is on that. And then maybe start looking at some of the shiny stuff that might have a big impact on your end users. But for many of you, you're the ones implementing and supporting these changes. So, really you want to look at where you have maximum impact and what's easiest to roll out, and perhaps this can help you. At the end of the day, we've another quote here from some of our MVPs about how knowledge is king. And that really is true, because the more you learn about the releases, the more value you're going to be able to give to your company and your career over time. Because really, right now you may not be ready for some features, but as you work with your stakeholders over time, they're going to come to you with new use cases. And that's where you'll be able to say, okay, I know this feature came out a couple of releases ago, so let's look at that. So it just helps you to keep driving value within your organization. The Trailblazer community that I'm sure all of you are now members of anyway is a great tool for anybody to connect with other customers, to connect with experts. It's had a bit of a facelift over the weekend, and we now have this ohana of customer success groups in the Trailhead community. So anywhere you see a logo with Blaze on it, you know that you're connecting with customers and experts for best practices to help you towards your own customer success. And you can see some of the examples here of the groups we have. Of course, our own personal home and yours during release time, and indeed year-round, should be the Release Readiness Trailblazers group. This is where we announce all the resources, so you don't have to keep looking for them. We'll push them out with you. And what I really like about this group is it's a great place to connect with other customers, see what people are excited about, maybe see what challenges they have, maybe see what things as well that they've decided, okay, that doesn't really go the full way for me in terms of that feature. I need more input on that. We also have lots of our power users and MVPs who post their blogs on what they're excited about in a release, and I really enjoy reading those. And Elna, you have your picks from the pack?
Yeah, so in addition to the new look for the customer success ohana in the Trailblazer community, we also launched a new newsletter called Picks from the Pack. And every week we're going to be featuring either customer success resources or Trailblazer innovation. So Trailblazer innovation is the one that's related to new releases and Lightning as well. So look for those being posted, usually at the end of the week in those groups.
Great. Now, if you're a more visual learner, we have lots of live events like our Release Readiness Live webcasts. These are live webcasts that we run with our product managers where they show you the release highlights, and we're all about demos on all of these because that's what people want to see. We record all of those. We make them available in kind of bite-sized pieces. So if you only want to watch Process Builder, for example, you can choose to just watch that segment. We also have global release overviews with our various teams around the world in different regions and in different languages. And we have a customer success calendar here where you can find, say, all the Spring 18 recordings, as well as what's going to be coming up for Summer 18.
Okay, so who knows what the hammer is or has heard of the hammer? Okay, so go ahead and step up to the mic and tell me what you, or just say what you think it is. Okay, so almost perfectly right. So the hammer is actually what it's called. Yeah, go ahead.
It's where Salesforce runs all test classes from all orgs against the new release.
Right. Okay, so Salesforce runs the hammer, which is all Apex tests for every single line of customer code. And they do it not once, but twice. Once under the current release and once under the new release, and then they compare, make sure everything's consistent. You can actually see now the results of the Salesforce hammer test in your org. We're going to show you in a demo. It's really easy to go find it in the setup, so you can see, if anything popped up for your org. But also, you can do your own version of the hammer. So slightly different. Obviously, you want to run those Apex tests as well. But you can also do a test script, for example, of your most critical business processes, a reusable script that you can use every release just to kind of test your main business processes to make sure everything works under the new release as expected, and also to discover how the new release interacts with your business processes, because you might discover some new ways to, tweak those things to save your users a few clicks or things like that. And we also don't say that you need to test everything, because there are customers who literally do no testing and they're fine. But we do encourage that you do especially test your high customizations. So Apex, Visualforce, automation like Flow and Process Builder, those tend to be more complex. Even though the APIs are very robust and things are backward compatible, there's always those little shortcuts that sometimes your developers take, or you might be taking if you're a developer. And so nothing's completely bulletproof. So it's just a good practice to just do the testing of those high customizations and anything that's part of a business critical process. You also want to test any installed applications, especially unmanaged packages, and you can probably guess why that is, because unmanaged packages can be modified in your org. So it's not really it can't be controlled by the author if you go in and make changes. And make the testing process not just about checking if it works, because most likely everything's going to work, but it's also a way to discover new things. You may discover how a new feature works, again, with your business processes, and you may get some feedback from your users as you involve them in the testing, have them do kind of a click-through script, and they might give you some feedback that might give you some ideas on how to further extend some of those new features. Definitely log a case if you find any issue, anything that doesn't work as expected, you find something weird, definitely log a case no matter what. In addition to that, go to the known issues site and look up the issue to see if it may have already been identified as a release-related issue. You can then follow the known issue and refer to it in your case. Very helpful to refer to a known issue in a case to kind of get it sped through a little faster. And then, in terms of user communication, what we really want to get across here is that you want to focus on what do users really need to know, and what's going to help them. So think about giving them the message about what's in it for them, what are the great things that are coming. You might have built some great back-end integration, but if they don't see it, they're not going to care about it. So just tell them about things that they're going to see and focus on the positive as much as possible. That's not saying that you shouldn't get feedback, good and bad, because you should get feedback from every channel you can. But definitely when you're sending those messages out, make sure you let them know what they're getting that's going to help them do their job. And also, make sure you let them know when things are coming, what's coming when, so they kind of get a sense of what's changing. And then, pick different communication channels. You might use multiple channels. You might show up at meetings. You might do chatter, email, whatever works. Do a whole combination of things to make sure you get the word out. Now, you also, as an admin or a developer, you want to make sure you maintain your certifications. And you need to do that by taking the maintenance exams for every release. So you have a good amount of time to do each of those. The Summer 17 exam needs to be done by, that's the one that's expiring next. So if you haven't done that one,
April 6th, that expires.
And if you're really ahead of the pack and you're waiting for the Spring 18 release exam, that's going to be out on
April 11th.
Right. She knows all these things. And also there's a trailhead. There's a trail on kind of best practices for managing releases, and there's also a module for every release, and there's one available now for Spring 18. So go ahead and add that to your badge collection. All right, we're going to do a really quick demo so we can have some time for questions.
Okay, so Elna was saying earlier, the first thing you need to do as part of your homework is know when the release is going to hit your instance. So I don't know how many people have seen the new Trust site. It's pretty nice, and it's much easier to find out when things are going to hit your instance. So are you on that? Yes?
Yeah, I was just trying to hide the taskbar, but all right.
Okay.
So we're on the Trust site now, and I'm going to go back here to home so you can see how to navigate this. So you can either look it up from an instance perspective or from a maintenance schedule perspective. So let's say you are on NA24. You can click on that. That's a production instance. Sandbox instances start with CS. So then you click on maintenances, and you'll see June 8th is when you're getting the summer 18 release. So that's what you want to look at, and you can click into here and see the details, the exact time, and what's actually happening there. You want to do the same thing for your sandboxes, if you have more than one, and it's that easy. So make that your homework for after you leave today.
And this is a 12-month rolling calendar. So say if you have things like, I don't know, maybe Black Friday is a big deal for you, or there are different things that you're rolling out over the year and you want to maybe avoid release weekends, you can see 12 months ahead now when a release is going to hit your instance or your sandbox.
Release notes is next.
Release notes is next. So these are your definitive source of truth about everything to do with the release. The filters are what we really want to show you here on the HTML version. And really, God, I wish my eyesight was better. I can't see that screen, so I'm going to have to go by here. So you can see, you can filter by edition, by feature impact. Well, one thing that's interesting as well is you can filter by API and by different product areas. And if you scroll down, you'll be able to see below what it serves up for you then to look through.
So this is that quick scan we were talking about, where you look at those blue italicized things, because those are the things that popped up in the filter. And then you don't look at this until you've clicked in over here, because this isn't changing when you do the filters. So quick little tip there. So definitely look at what's enabled for users. Look on product area, and including things like API and your edition.
And this is where I go. It's not my first rodeo, and I forgot I have a screen down here.
Okay, let's talk about where to find the hammer. So we're in the setup home right now, and I can literally just search for hammer, and you can see Apex Hammer test results. So I'll click on there, and I can see what went on the last time it ran. Oh, something happened there, but looks like it was pretty good. So this tells you kind of your basic summary. That's not to say you shouldn't run your own Apex test. For sure you should, but that's where you can find that. And then this is the release site, which kind of has your high-level overview. It has a link to the release notes, but also there's some videos. There's the release preview, great executive summary if you just want kind of the top highlights in PDF format. And then you can look in each cloud and what are the top features for each cloud. So this is another good way to kind of quickly scan through by cloud what are the top features that are recommended on this site.
And it's a great way as well, because I know sometimes as admins, you need to explain to your end users who are a sales manager or sales VP kind of what the feature is about. These give you the kind of business value statement, and they're accompanied by 2-minute, quite high-level videos that you can share with those stakeholders.
And last, we want to show you the Release Readiness Trailblazers group. It used to be called Release Readiness and Feature Adoption. So you want to talk a little bit about what we can get here?
Well, maybe we'll point to the sidebar here, which is where we have all our resources for the current release, which is Spring 18. If you're still catching up on your certifications, we also have resources for previous releases. We've links to roadmaps. So I don't know how many of you are aware, but we publish both our Lightning Experience Roadmap and our Lightning Component Roadmap. And we link to those on the sidebar here. So this is a great place to go if you're going, well, I can't move to Lightning till Joined Reports comes to Lightning. You can look at the roadmap for the next release and future and see, when that's slated for coming. The great thing about the success community, or the Trailblazer community, I will get that right one of these days, is that, say you look at one of the roadmaps and you go, I'm really interested in Joined Reports, but that's still in the future column. A little known secret is that our product managers are monitoring the Release Readiness group and the Lightning Now group all the time. And indeed, myself and Elna loop them in all the time. So if you're kind of going, when are Joined Reports coming? We know that our PM, Liz Gates, has already answered that question numerous times. on the community saying, you know, it's coming in beta. I think it's pilot maybe in summer and scheduled to go GA in winter. So, I'll safe harbor myself, forward-looking statement myself or whatever. But, you know, it's great to get that kind of input, and also to hear from customers. You know, a lot of people go, so how are you using macros? And, you know, somebody will say what their use case is, and it's great for suggesting additional use cases that maybe you hadn't even thought of yet.
Yeah, so there's basically two reasons to engage here. One is if you really want to follow everything up to the minute, everything that's hot off the press, it's all consolidated there. So as soon as those sandbox preview instructions go live, there's going to be an announcement in here that you can pick up on. The other reason to go here is if you have a question. So you might not be following it that closely, but you're at the present time you're looking at a release, and you want to know, you have a question about a feature, or you have a roadmap question, or you want to understand a little bit about your sandbox situation. This is where you go post it, and we have a no question left behind policy. So definitely don't be shy about asking questions. There's no stupid question. And
speaking of which, we've 4 minutes left, so let's move to questions.
We have one more quick takeaways, or do you want to do the takeaways before? Or
that's me. I can be very quick on this way. So really, our key takeaways for today are new releases give you the quickest way to get great stuff out of the box rather than having to go and build it. But you don't have to push yourself too much. If you start with 4 key steps, an hour or 2 every release will help you see what impacts your users and your orgs. We know that different orgs have different, you know, appetites for change, so take it at your own pace, but know that there's a lot of knowledge out there that can offer you a lot of opportunity.
Now we're ready for questions.
Now we're ready for questions.
So step up to the mic, ask anything, stay after if you want to chat with us as well.
Yeah.
So when you were demoing the hammer test results, so if they're not 100% successful, can we see the details of the failures?
Good question. Let's see if we can look. I don't know if that...
I'll take another question while Anna's looking that up if anybody else has a question.
It doesn't look like you can... it doesn't look like you can drill into it, but you know, generally the results of the hammer are handled by our Salesforce technology group, and you will run your own. When you run your own Apex tests, if you see something there that doesn't look quite right, just run your own Apex tests and then evaluate them as you normally would.
The listing of the different instances and the release dates, is there a way to get that list via API somehow? Like if we have 100 customers we're supporting and we want to let each of them know when their release is going?
It's a good question. You know,
I don't think so, but that's a great idea.
The Sandbox team is working on this new little tool, which is still they're still kind of building it. They haven't made it public yet, but it's like a little site where you can go and plug in, you know, what your instance, and then it will tell you what you need to do. And I know that a number of success managers who work with large customers have asked, is there a way to get a batch, you know, a bunch of, all the family of, you know, multiple orgs and multiple sandboxes. And they did take that feedback. So that might be something that will come in the future, but right now you do have to look them up individually. You could make your own list of instances, and you know, then just update it when you see the sandbox preview instructions, because a lot of them stay the same. A lot of the sandboxes that are on a preview instance are on a preview instance the next release too. There are changes though, so you'd have to keep on top of it. Right.
So for hammer testing, can we on-demand run it, or it is only for the period when you have a release, the window will open to run this?
So the hammer test is just running the Apex test. You can run that anytime. But you want to run it in your sandbox during the sandbox preview when that sandbox has the new release on it, because that's going to give you a heads up about anything that may be release related before it hits your production org.
Oh, but it would be only in the preview period we can run this, or I can.
You can run it. Well, if you run it in your production org, it's going to run against the existing release. Right. So the only way to run it against the upcoming release would be after it goes into production or in the sandbox preview. So if you do a new if you're really good and you do your refresh before that cutoff, and so you have a recent copy of production in a preview, on a preview instance, that's a pretty close indicator of what's going to go on in production. All right, sure. Any others? How much time do we have? 37 seconds. We have time for one more question. Otherwise, have a great time at DX.
Yeah. And thanks for coming along and staying to the bitter end.